Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Biology Daily Booster, number 16 on our list. Now, today's topic is one that is listed on the advanced information for both foundation and higher biology. So everyone, this is important. What we're going to be looking at are hormones and negative feedback then. So first of all, when we're asked what is a hormone, it is a chemical messenger. So hormones quite simply are chemicals that are going to be made in these things called endocrine glands, and then they're going to travel through the bloodstream in order to bring about a response in the target organs or the target cells. So keywords here: endocrine glands, the ones that make the hormone. The blood is how it's going to travel to the target organs, and the target organs are the ones where the response is going to be seen. There is one other term you can see at the bottom we need to know the definition for, and that term is homeostasis. So when we are talking about homeostasis, this is the maintenance of a constant internal environment. By that, we mean we're keeping the conditions inside our body the same at all times. One of the things they can ask you to do is to compare the action of hormones to nerves, because we've got these two different systems that work in our body, the hormonal system and then the nervous system. So both of them are to do with communication and bringing about changes, but they work in different ways. So as far as hormones go, they're fairly slow compared to the fast nervous system. But the hormones are longer lasting than the nervous response. As we've already said, hormones are chemicals in the blood, whereas the nervous system is the electrical impulse that travels along the axon of those neurons. And hormones will affect a larger area, whereas for the nervous system, it's a much more targeted, small area that's going to be affected by those electrical impulses. So make sure you can compare hormones and the nervous system. One little caveat at the bottom there is that's the usual situation with hormones being fairly slow. There are some examples where they can act more quickly, and the best example of this, and one we'll look at a bit later on, is adrenaline. We've mentioned the idea of target cells, and quite simply, target cells are the ones that are located within our target organ that contain specific receptors on their membrane or in their cytoplasm for the particular hormone that's required to bring about the necessary change. So you can see in the little picture at the bottom there that we've got our little cell here which has got these little shapes which are our receptors. So they're kind of like little semicircles on the first one. On the second cell here we've got the semicircles like the first cell, but also the Y-shaped ones, so two different hormone receptors on that second cell. And then the third cell over here, we've got receptors only for the Y shape. So the receptor, quite simply, is just a protein on the surface there that's going to bind to the hormone. What we now need to understand then is how the hormones do this. And we're going to be looking at something called negative feedback. Now, quite simply, negative feedback is a control mechanism that we use in homeostasis. And the way it works is the receptors are going to detect a small change, and then they're going to communicate with the effectors to reverse that change. So realistically, it's a little kind of feedback system where the receptors detect that there's a change, and then they bring about some kind of change for our effectors to bring it back to where it should be. We're going to have a look at this in two different examples, the first one being thyroxine. Now, thyroxine is produced in your thyroid gland, and its whole purpose is to regulate your metabolic rate in the body. So the way we make thyroxine then is we're going to use iodine, which comes from our food, and we're going to add it to one of the amino acids in our body, tyrosine, to make the thyroxine. So that gives us thyroxine in the thyroid gland. What we're now going to do is have a look to see how this whole thing is controlled. Okay, let's have a little look then at how this negative feedback system works in the case of thyroxine. Now, as we've already said, thyroxine is all to do with controlling how much energy is available to those cells. So it's controlling the metabolic rate of the body. Now, the first thing we need is our hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is that region of the brain that we looked at in our brain booster, which is all to do with regulating a range of things in the body. So what we're going to see then is our hypothalamus detects the low thyroxine level in the blood first of all. So as the blood flows through, it detects that there is a low level of thyroxine. As a result of that, it releases the hormone TSH from the pituitary gland. So the way it does that is the hypothalamus sends a signal to the pituitary gland, think about their location, just one in front of the other, and that means TSH is going to be released by the pituitary. The TSH travels through the bloodstream, because it's a hormone, to the thyroid gland, and it stimulates it to make the thyroxine. So as TSH reaches the thyroid gland, which is its target, it then tells it, make more thyroxine. As a result of that, we then get an increase in the thyroxine levels in the blood, which the hypothalamus detects. Because the hypothalamus has detected that we've now gone back to our normal level of thyroxine, then it sends the message to the pituitary gland to say stop making TSH. Because the TSH is no longer being made in our pituitary, the levels in the blood will fall, the thyroid gland stops making thyroxine, and actually we end up going back round to a lower level. What we're really seeing here then is a cycle. It's going to be cycling from just a little bit below to just a little bit above in each case, but it's always kept within a narrow range. What do we need to remember here then? Hypothalamus is the area that detects. TSH is the hormone, and it's released by the pituitary but affects the thyroid gland. So make sure you remember the basics of that little cycle there that I've given you on the screen. The second hormone we need to know about is adrenaline then. Now adrenaline is a hormone made in the adrenal glands, and it's all to do with preparing the body for this fight or flight response. Now what we find is in a stressful situation, then your body needs to respond in some way. Either it needs to respond by fighting whatever the danger is, or running away from it, the flight. The way it does this then is that when adrenaline is circulating in your bloodstream, it's going to get cells respiring faster. It's going to lead to an increased breathing rate and heart rate to obviously supply those cells with the oxygen and glucose they need to carry out that respiration. And to make sure that we're getting all of those things to the right places, i.e. your muscles, then it actually diverts blood away from the non-critical areas like your digestive system and sends more blood to the muscles. The whole idea behind that is it means the muscle cells are getting a much greater quantity of oxygen and glucose in the same time frame that they would be otherwise. Final thing to do then today is head on over and have a go at the quiz. You can see the link there, and again the link is in the description box below. Have a go, see how well you've understood this little booster. If there are any topics you're still not certain on, then obviously you can look at the videos on the main channel for it, use your revision guide, your notes, look it up and make sure you understand it properly, because it is advanced information. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow for our next Daily Booster.